Hey guys, it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am nothing short of thrilled because we're doing a little emergency review of the ColourMom collection. I'm extremely happy for Kristi. I know that collabing with ColourPop has been a long-time dream of hers, and this collection, I can just tell how much love and Kristi went into the collection just based on all the small details. So I was super thrilled to get the collection this week, and I've been testing it out. And this has probably been one of the most requested reviews I've had since probably the ColourPop tie-dye collection. So really excited about this. I do have some mixed feelings on certain products in the collection, so though I do love Kristi, I do want to just review the makeup as makeup items. I love that she designed the palette in particular with kind of influences of the Pacific Northwest. The promo photos for this collection, she looked like a freaking forest fairy. I'm just very excited for her and very happy that the collection has done so well so far. I believe it's currently sold out as I'm making this video, but they should be restocking it fairly soon. So the collection consists of obviously the At Forest Sight palette. The pun took me about 20 minutes to get, so yeah. Head empty, no thoughts. It is a beautiful little 12-pan palette in cardboard packaging. 4 Super Shock shadows here, one of which gave Ritz a run for its money. We'll get to that in a minute. For the lip products of this collection, they went with the Luxe formulas, which is my favorite line of lip products that ColourPop offers. I feel like they've been doing Luxe glosses at least for a lot of their recent collections, which I'm really excited to see, because I don't love ColourPop's ultra glossy lip formula. I feel like it's just really very sticky and not a good lip gloss formula, but the Luxe glosses are my favorite. So we have 2 here. And then something I saw a lot of excitement around were the 3 eyeliners in the collection, one of which is this beautiful kind of like mustardy yellow that I was very excited about, and another one that was a beautiful forest green. So in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing everything in the collection, providing some kind of like comparisons to the palette. Not so much dupes because it's like a ColourPop palette, but today's Do Fairy is honestly Kristi in the promo photos for this collection, because I think she kind of owns that title today. But today's channel Do Fairy of the day is Isabel Hallberg. Thank you so much for having your notification bell on. And details of this makeup look are going to be in this video because I do a tutorial on this eyeshadow look. So a tutorial? Who am I? Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and without further ado, you're not my real dad and you never will be. I like to start off every collection review with the palette. Don't mind me as I sit back in my gaming chair. This is the At Forest Sight palette, and it's covered in mushrooms on the outer packaging, the nice kind of standard ColourPop rubberized cardboard packaging. And then here is the inside of the palette. So kind of grungy. I've seen some people kind of comparing it to Subculture, but I would say it's kind of a mix of grungy dual tones and just kind of like warmer toned mustardy neutrals. Overall, I've really enjoyed working with this palette so far. Formula wise, I think this is one of ColourPop's good palettes of the year, especially for their more like hyped up limited edition collections, particularly Candyland and Sailor Moon. I've really not enjoyed the quality of their palettes this year, but this feels like the classic formula from ColourPop that I know and love. I will say some of the darker matte shades in here can be a little bit hard to work with, but I don't think that's because of the formula. I think that's more the virtue of the fact that they're like dark greens and blues. So I would say Emerald City and PNW could be a little bit more difficult to work with if you just generally don't use a ton of greens and blues. There's only one matte with micro glitter in here, and that's the shade here called Let It Rain, which is a black kind of infused with like goldish orangey toned glitter in there.
This is disgusting. I like it though.
I will only tolerate one type of matte with micro glitter, and that is a black shade. I actually really enjoy blacks with micro glitter in them. I feel like they're really fun for creating a nice smoky liner. I rarely ever use black as like a full-on blended out shade all over my lids anyways. It's usually something I use for like an accent liner shade or just deepening up the outer corner. I use this one in today's eye look, and whenever I've been doing an eye look with this palette, I really love reaching for this to do kind of like a smoky but blended out winged liner. So I would say really the only complaints that I have with this one are A, some of the darker matte shades might be a little bit harder to work with for beginners, and B, the formula is pretty powdery. There is a lot of powdery kick with these mattes. I think that's most ColourPop palettes honestly, but a few shades in here were particularly powdery. So Puffball, Emerald City, and PNW were the biggest culprits. The powderiness did kind of remind me of Subculture, but these were a lot easier to blend out than Subculture, so don't worry. And then there's 2 shimmers in here. Evergreen I think is probably my favorite shade in the palette. It's this beautiful kind of duochrome. It's what I'm wearing on my lids right now. It's this mix between a duochrome like foresty green with a little bit of like a neutral brown in there as well. I really feel like you can pair it with the greens in here to make a full-on green look, or if you pair it with the browns in here, it doesn't look like fully green, but it does look unique on the lid. So it's like you can't really tell that you're wearing green eyeshadow, but it just adds a little something to the eye look. So for me, overall, I give the palette like an 8 out of 10. I really like it a lot, and if you do like the color scheme, I would totally recommend it. I am aware that this sold out pretty quickly, but I think it's one of ColourPop's best palettes of the year in terms of formula, and I just like the color scheme a lot. I did want to compare this color scheme to a couple other things because I've seen a lot of people, and I kind of want to touch on this for a second. I do appreciate a lot like dupes pages and what they do, but I can't help but think that it must be somewhat disheartening for a creator when they're coming out with a collab to see people like comparing their palette to so many other things when obviously they must have put a lot of time and effort into it. I only mention that in front of the fact that I'm going to do comparisons in a second, just to kind of say I don't mean to compare the palette in any way to be like, here's reasons why you shouldn't buy this palette. And Christy, just by the way she spoke about this collection, I can tell she put a ton of work into it. So not making comparisons by any means to detract from this palette, just to kind of give options and show what you might not need to buy if you do get this one. So first, I saw a lot of people comparing this to her Pure palette, which I don't think the two are similar at all. I guess there's a similarity of having both a green and a blue and a kind of yellow shade in there, but I think that's kind of it, honestly. This is a little bit more earthy toned, whereas the Pure one I feel like is a little bit more on the vibrant side. These have a little bit more of that nature toned, like Pacific Northwest forest girl. I think the closest comparisons I've seen to this one are between this and Anastasia Subculture, as well as this and the I Love Sadahi Through My Eyes palette from ColourPop. I don't have my Subculture right now to compare it to, but I would say like these are the most similar colors. Kind of also looks like the Viseart Dark Mattes palette if you cover up the rest of the shades. Formula wise though, I think even though this one is still kind of powdery just by virtue of like a colorful matte formula, this is a lot more user-friendly and manageable than Subculture. Plus I think this is a lot more earthy toned and natural than Subculture, which had like a lime green and like a duochrome pink white shade in there. So I don't think those two palettes are too similar. When it comes to the Through My Eyes palette though, I can see where a lot of comparisons are coming in, especially between Chanterelle, which is the kind of mustardy yellow up here, and Wild Soul, as well as Emerald City and Moody, which are almost exactly the same color, Amanita and Divina, and I think that's kind of it. There's really only 4 overlapping shades in here, maybe Old Growth and Nostalgia down here. So even though not every single shade in here is reflected in this palette, I do think that the key shades in here that make this color scheme what it is are in this palette. If you already have the Through My Eyes palette, I feel like you can create a lot of the same looks that you would with the RAWBEAUTYKRISTI palette, with the exception of anything using like the blue shade here, and I feel like the neutrals in this palette are a lot more like kind of corally toned and pink toned, whereas these are a little bit more warm and yellowy toned. Plus this one is a little bit bigger, it has a mirror, and has a lot more shimmer options. If you already have this one, I think it's up to you if you want to get this one, if you feel it would be too repetitive. Next, I wanted to compare this palette to the Noblesse Secret palette. When I opened it and I kind of saw the greens in here, I felt like, maybe. But upon pulling this out, this is definitely a lot more shimmer heavy, and B, the neutrals in here are definitely more like neutral. I wouldn't say this is a fully cool tone neutral palette, but it's definitely not quite as warm toned as this. So I don't really think that these are very similar at all. And then finally, one of my favorite palettes as of lately has been the Artemis palette from Alter Ego. These, I think there's a lot of overlap. You have some of the navy blues in here and the darker greens and the mossy tone like olive greens, and the kind of mustardy tone, very yellowy neutrals. So this palette, I think, has almost every shade in this palette minus the purple, maybe. I would say go for this one if you like the colors in this RAWBEAUTYKRISTI palette, but you like a more natural finish. I feel like they're a little bit easier to work with and blend. So if you like the darker shades in here, but you want something that's a little bit more just like creamy to work with. But I still think this is beautiful. So yeah, those are the main palettes I want to compare this one to, just to kind of share the options. But overall, she's a hit for me. Now I'll share a little tutorial that I did using this palette. So I started off by grabbing the shade Fiddlehead with a nice fluffy brush and just kind of fluff that into the crease. I then grabbed Emerald City, which is the beautiful like foresty green darker shade. I tried to kind of focus the eyeshadow in a shape that would kind of wing out the outer corner of my eye a little bit. I went ahead and grabbed Let It Rain on a nice precise brush and did a little bit of a smoky pseudo winged liner effect using the eyeshadow. And then for my lids, I popped Evergreen onto my entire lid and then just blended out the edges of that with Emerald City. Then I felt like something was missing, so I went ahead and grabbed West Coast, and I decided to put that on the very inner tear duct on my lower lash line. I really liked how it looked, but I still felt like something was missing. So then I grabbed Chanterelle and just fluffed that right underneath West Coast, and it was perfect. The only thing the palette was really lacking was an inner corner shade, so I went ahead and went in with Kaleidos Ray Rider and just popped that on. Gotta adjust my little fairy crown right now. Give me a sec. Super Shocks. I feel like it's actually been a while since a major ColourPop collection has come out with new Super Shock shades. They don't really include Super Shock shadows in their collections very often anymore, and I hope that doesn't mean that they're phasing them out because I love the Super Shock textures. I have 4 Super Shock shades here. Campfire, which is a very orangey, glittery copper shade. Like a Moss, which is this olivey green duochrome shade. I was very excited about this one. Olympic, which is this very nice classic champagne shade. And then my favorite of the 4, Mycelium, which is this beautiful, it's like almost a clear base with a kind of gold-ish, like platinum shimmer to it. Ugh, I hate this. Ugh, so pretty. I'll start with Mycelium. This is basically the gold version of Ritz. Ritz is a clear base with a bit of a transparent silver glitter running throughout it. Both have a nice strong beige undertone, so they work with everything. Mycelium, though, I've been wearing very often to work. I love this shade. So if I've put you onto Ritz, I think you will really enjoy Mycelium as well. They are similar, but I don't think that they're too similar to have together in the same collection because Mycelium just has a little bit of that goldish champagne undertone, so it works really nicely with warmer tone neutrals. Ritz works with literally everything, but if you want like a kind of goldish, more champagne, almost rosy version of Ritz, this is the way to go. I'm so excited about this. The other Super Shocks, unfortunately, weren't really my favorite. I think Olympic is probably my second favorite in the collection. This is just like a kind of classic champagne shade. Can't really go wrong, to be honest. I really like this a lot as an inner corner highlighter. I don't think that it's good as a face highlighter though, just because it's a little bit too glittery. So these are all ultra glitter finishes for the Super Shock shades. However, you don't really have an inner corner highlighter shade within the actual eyeshadow palette itself. I think that it was helpful offering this in the collection. I can see why she made this one of the shades. The other 2 shades I wasn't a fan of. Campfire, I felt like the glitter in this wore off pretty quickly, so it just looked like I put a vaguely like orangey shade on my eyelids. And then Like a Moss wasn't my favorite either. I felt like this just didn't really look that green on the eyes, whereas Evergreen in the palette, even though they kind of looked like they would be similar vibes, this I think retains a lot of its true green color, even though it can work with browns, whereas this really just looked beige on the eyes with like a hint of Shrek in there, but not enough. Never enough Shrek. Eyeliners. I really enjoyed seeing how much ColourPop has improved their eyeliner formula. I hated their cream gel liner formula when they first came out with it. I felt like especially the lighter shades like this yellow were just unworkable. They were very dry. But we have Woodsy, this beautiful like chestnut, very warm tone brown shade in here. Spare Time. Oh, mom jokes. And Marigold. So I love these. ColourPop's new liner formula is so creamy and so good. I think they really improved starting with the tie-dye collection that had those kind of pastel liners. Those were actually surprisingly very good after I tried a long line of ColourPop liners that were just not it for me. But I wore this green eyeliner to work the other day with a very neutral eye look, and I think it's just such a nice subtle way to inject a little bit of color into your eye look. Green eyeliner. Let's make that a thing in 2021. 2021.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Oh my god. So if you're a liner person, I think you'll really enjoy these. Especially, I know there was a green eyeliner in the Hocus Pocus collection that had shimmer in it, and I was really hoping for that one to be matte. This is the perfect option. Finishing off with the 2 Luxe glosses. We have Wildflower and Glacier. I think Glacier was actually one of the last things left in the collection that was like still in stock, which I don't know why. I would think that this would be one of the top sellers. I'm wearing Wildflower right now on my lips. It's the only thing I have on. I don't think that the color is opaque enough to really matter, so this really does perform a lot like a clear gloss would, to be honest. I don't really get any type of pink color from this. These were a little bit stickier than I remember the Luxe gloss formula being. So for example, this is one of my favorite gloss formulas. I don't think it's like super heavy, but it does have enough like thickness to it where it doesn't wear off or sink into the lips super quickly. So my personal favorite would probably be the Glacier shade. This reminds me a lot of the Fenty Beauty Diamond Bomb, but a lot more affordable. That is it. That is the entire ColourPop RAWBEAUTYKRISTI collection. Huge congrats to our color mom once again. Overall, I would say standout products from the collection. I love the palette. I do think it's really beautiful. I think there's a lot of versatility in here, and I think the color scheme was very thoughtfully put together. I love Mycelium. I don't think that it's 100% a necessity if you have Ritz already, but she do be pretty. And then I also really enjoyed the liners, particularly Spare Time. I hope you guys enjoyed this little emergency review. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed down below. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and the Tickety Talk, where I post a little TikTok with this look. And if you made it to the very end of this video, you get the bonus meme. You're not my real dad, and you never will be. I love you. Bye.
I mean, where the fuck should I really even start?